The Jolly Old Shadow Man by Gertrude Alice Kay. Read by Ellie Dixon. Tom was in bed. He didn't like being there, but he couldn't help it. His grandma had led him up the winding stairway and into the big spare room long before the little hand of the clock had got around to 8. Even now, though it seemed he'd been in bed for ages, he could see narrow bars of light shining through the shutters. So he knew it was still much too early for such a big boy to have gone to bed. Still, Tom knew that in one way he'd belonged there. He really hadn't deserved to sit up that evening. You see, he was visiting his grandma's big house while his mum and dad were away on a long journey. And Tom knew that he really hadn't behaved very well that day. Maybe if his mum and dad had been at home, he wouldn't have acted as he had acted all day long. On the way upstairs, his grandma had told him that she wanted him to think of everything he'd done that day. He had done a lot of things, of course, but he knew which things Grandma wanted him to think about. He knew she meant the way he'd complained about the clothes she'd made him wear that morning, and of how discontented and ungrateful he'd been at breakfast, of how he'd annoyed his auntie, and finally stuck out his tongue at her. Oh, how rude! Yes, he knew what his dad would have had to say about that. Tom didn't want to think about these things, but he had to. He was all alone, with nothing to interest or entertain him. His grandma had gone downstairs, and he had only the candle on the little table near the bed for comfort. The candle burned brightly, so he could see all about the room, and by, as he twisted and turned, it's not pleasant, you know, to be alone with a guilty conscience, he saw a strange shadow on the wall. The shadow looked like the shadow of a little old man, with a high hat and a hump on his back. It looked very real, and Tom looked at it for a long time. "Go away," he said at last. "Go away this minute." "I can't," said the jolly old shadow man. "You won't let me." "I'm not keeping you," said Tom, as angrily as anything. "I want you to go away." "But you are keeping me," the jolly old shadow man answered. "For as long as you leave your clothes in that untidy pile on the chair over there, with the candlelight behind it, I'm bound to be this shadow on the wall." Sure enough, that was how it had happened. Tom could see it for himself. One sleeve standing up oddly was the hat. His shirt collar made the sharp nose and chin. Something else made the hump on the back, and so on. But it annoyed him just the same to have the old man there on the wall. So he said again, quite sharply, "I tell you to go away, for I don't want you on my wall." The jolly old shadow man laughed merrily. "Oh, don't be so cross about it," he chuckled. "I don't like cross people. Indeed, I'd rather meet a big yellow tiger face to face than a cross person. For you can always coax a tiger to smile if you have your wits about you." Tom wondered if the jolly old shadow man meant him when he spoke about cross people. Maybe he did, for Tom really had been cross today.